Hey, it's the Chief Bonding with Board Games. We're coming to you with PSC's Red Alert from Richard Borg, baby, part of the Borg series. For those that don't know commands and colors, C&C, you should. Maybe this is the one. Let's go take a look at the giant mat, the big ships, and the really quite stunning production. Let's go take a gander. All right, so you can see the scope is huge. I'm going to pan just slightly so you can see the edge here. I'll put up the dimensions of this map, which is actually a cloth mat that sits down on your table. I'll put up the dimensions somewhere in the corner here. And then you've got big hexagons that your big plastic minis, your ships, are fighting in, and cardboard hexagons that will be like these planets here that you can put on. Now, I've just put stuff up for display. I'm going to come over top real quick just so you can see kind of what's going on. Let me move this a little bit. So you're going to have flagships, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and fighters. You can make these heavy by adding an extra one to them. There's costs to these different types of units. You can see their exact counterparts on the red side as well. I'll throw up some pictures probably in the side here, just so you can see them as I'm talking about them. What you'll also have in, well, let me point out because they're so gorgeous, the mat is so big that you can fit on these giant cardboard hexagons that will make up multi-pieces of stars or I don't know, hot planets or whatever. Hot planets, yeah, that's it, hot planets. So you've got these very beautiful celestial objects that you're moving around or they're in your way or you're fighting over. But to get into the mechanics, so if anybody knows command and color system, you have a left, center, and a right. You can see these dashed lines setting that up. You'll have a hand of cards that'll be based, these command cards, which on your turn you'll play one, and it'll allow you to activate units in those sections. So I've put out the probe left wing and the probe right wing, and you can see if you played that, you would be able to move, in this case, one card, and it'll allow you to activate 2 units that would be in this section. Now, yes, if you're hovering over both lines, a center card or a left card would be able to activate that unit. Matter of fact, you want to do that sometimes. Same deal if I played the right card here, the right wing I could activate too, but I've also got some examples of advance center right down here, which is going to allow me to advance 3 units in the center, or advance left 3, advance right 3. I'll go through some of the other cards so you can just see how they work. Those are the basic cards. Then you have command cards that have beautiful artwork. They allow you to do all kinds of different things. You'll also be able to play combat cards alongside your command cards, as long as you have enough star tokens, that's these white tokens here with the yellow star on them, to pay the cost. Again, I'll show some of those. First strike, so you get into close combat, close quarters combat, it's 1 hex away. With another unit, I can play that down actually as an interrupt, and my guy can fight first. Warp charge, again, beautiful art here. I can order 3 different units. They can be in any sector. They get to move 3 hexes, which can be very advantageous for some of your bigger ships. But they have to get into close quarters battle, which is not usually what you want to do with your heavies, with your big guys. But you can't stand off and do ranged combat. So there's a nice little, whoop, what are we going to do there? I love, love, love light up the stars. You can just see this epic, everything's launched, everything's firing, lasers, torpedoes, whatever is all in it. We're throwing a bucket at them. What I like about this is when you light up the stars, you don't move. The units you activate do not move, but they get to fire twice. There's some extra little rules on that we won't get into, and it's for 3 units. Command vessel, anybody that's contiguous or next to or within that line of the command vessel, hey, we're all moving forward. Move, combat, move. Move Combat Move is for your fighters. Now what happens to me on occasion is I lose all my fighters and then this card sits in my hand and I do not like it nearly as much and I have to use it for the simple version, but it is exactly what it sounds like. Move your fighters, combat, and then boop, a hit and run. Get them right back out of there. Love the card, love it. Direct from Starbase. So you can see in one of the Kickstarter extras or the expansions, you get a little Starbase, but this is a card that allows you to take your stars, your yellow stars, your white tokens, and you can use as many of them as you want, but they're going away. You get to pledge them to multiple different fleet sections or ship sections, and they can activate. Another thing is you don't get to collect star tokens when you roll the dice. This drains your star pool, but it is awesome. Order all fighter ships. Your fighters all go into action. I'm in command. First of all, it's got a little cool cyborg thing that's going on here. Again, the art's great. You're going to roll your dice. Stars will get you double stars. Whatever shapes will allow you to activate those type of ships. Green circles, I can activate fighters. Hopefully I have some. Bursts, random. I can pick anybody, or wild. I can pick anybody. Red alerts, dead, nothing. Now we're going to move into some combat cards. So the combat cards I love. We've got Locked on Target. They have a battleship version, a cruiser version, and a fighter version. You get one extra die as you go into those combats. The cloaking device I've talked about, I won't go into all the rules with it, but it makes it, as you would expect, a lot harder to hit. Hello, you can't see it, it's cloaked. Phaser broadside, this again looks like everything in the kitchen sink is being thrown out, and it looks awesome. And my boy loves the capital ship super phaser. Light speed, the ship looks like it's jumping into light speed. Warp escape, you're able to bail out, get away from a combat. And my son also loves firing what looks suspiciously to me like photon torpedoes. You get a little couple extra dice with that. Boarding party, hard to trigger, but if you can get a cruiser in, you can actually board. It's a crapshoot, as most boarding parties are. I won't go into all the rules, but you can feel the fun. Ambush, there's nothing like someone goes to attack you. I, as the defender, pay my stars, throw my combat card in there, and guess who gets to go first? Hello? Hello? Warp attack. I can throw some trouble with parasites at you and drain all but 2 of your stars. That's really fun when they've got a huge bunch. For those that like Geordie and Scotty, you can have some superior engineers. They get to fix things, cancel out your red alerts. Fighters evade really well. And of course, you have a card that lets you battle back. Normally, you've got to use your stars to battle back. And this even gives you a little extra bonuses once you pay that cost. And again, you can see the cost being paid there. After you move, if you're in range, which is really nicely facilitated, both your movement and your range and the type of unit you have, pictures will be inserted at this point in time showing these tokens. You can then attack. So not only do these tokens show the amount of movement a particular ship can do, so I could activate 2 on my left flank, and if I picked a fighter, it could move 4 hexagons. I could move less. I don't have to move at all. It's just active. After I've moved everything that I can move based on the card, so in this case, I've moved 2 on my left wing. If any of them in range, which is again shown very nicely on the counter, I can then go into a combat phase. Pick a group of vessels. So even though you may see 3 or 4, or if I take damage, I may lose some of these ships in my hexagon. At least for me, I don't look at them as 3 battleships. I look at them as a group of battleships. And as I'm taking damage, I'll always still be able to roll the same amount of dice. That's something that varies in some of the CNCs, some of the Command and Color systems, Napoleonics in particular. But in this one, you'll be rolling the dice, and depending on the shape and color of the dice you get, different things will happen. So yellow means I'll get stars, which are good. They're the currency that are going to allow me to do things. If I got a green circle, that would be what I would need in order to hit a fighter group. Now what will happen often is I'll be attacking fighters and I'll roll a bunch of purple squares. Well, that means I didn't hit anything. Now, if I was rolling purple squares and attacking a capital ship, which would be battleships or the flagships, bingo, I need those purple squares. And all the strike ships, which are cruisers and destroyers, again, if they say heavy, they have one more, then it's blue triangles. Blue triangles. So these shapes and some of these colors will be very similar to Ancients and some of the other games you've played. And then you have a couple different things. You have the burst, which is this orange explosive burst you see down there. It's a wild card. Now, depending on size disparity, in other words, if a giant battleship is shooting at a fighter, it can ignore one of those. It's just too quick. But if I get a bunch of bursts, okay, some of them are going to get through. Vice versa. The fighters attacking a battleship, well, maybe they've got bigger shields or thicker armor. They get to ignore a couple of bursts. So I need to actually hit their shape, their purple square. You also see the red alerts. The red alerts are like retreats, but in the game you're thinking of them as there's been a hit, first of all, you've got to be hit, and then if there's red alerts, it's done some kind of critical damage to that section or that ship, or a shields are going down, or there's a disruption, or whatever. What it really triggers is a retreat. Retreats always have to go backwards toward the player, and you can set up very cool situations where if they're retreating through enemy location or other enemy fleets or even friendly fleets, they can take additional losses. You have a very handy card that explains all this at glancing moments in time. You can just take a look, confirm. There are some different side rules that I'm not diving into now with some of the different ships and classes. All right, I wanted to zoom in on a planet and just show some of the extras that you can get. So you can get the carrier star pack. So when you get the star pack, you can tell you're getting a carrier, and it comes with some fighters, and they're kind of fat. But you can have carrier operations. For me, the best way to think of these is kind of like Pacific War and World War II. You can get a Vice Admiral's flagship. This is another command vessel. Normally you have one, but now you could technically have two of them out there. They're very slow, but they come with all kinds of other powerful things they can do. The Dreadnought Escalation Pack. Hello. So the Dreadnoughts are these behemoths. Think super battleships. And they come with their own little cap fighters as well. And then Logistics Space Platform, which is a starbase, if I can get it down and on screen. And you have some little freighters as well. And it can lead to a bunch of different scenarios. There's actually even a fan-based set of scenarios for the carriers. All right, back to the table. All right, so final thoughts. Number one, before we go into Red Alert, PSC, Plastic Soldier Company, their first shot at the Borg system was World War I. And I'm thrilled to say they've had a tank expansion and their French expansion. Who knows if more are coming. But I like seeing what they're doing in the space, okay, especially with the plastic ships they've done here. So everything Red Alert is grand. It's so big that some folks won't buy it because it won't fit on their table. Got it. I've got, luckily, 2 big tables. But it might be worth buying a table if you like the play aspect of the CNC system. This is way more leaning toward light CNC game than heavy war simulation. Now, CNC always kind of falls in there for me. And their toy factor's huge. Memoir 44, I'm a big World War II nut, but that's where it was on display as far as the toy factor the most for me. This is now taken over as far as toy factor. Now, I'm going to pause here because one of my highlights is I set this up on my table where you've just seen it. I set all the ships up, and my hope, my dream even, was that my son and or grandson would see it and go, what? And it did exactly that. The eye candy factor is huge. Grandson was even a little bit, I think, intimidated by the scope of it. But my almost 14-year-old said, what is this? We talked about it. He had played, actually, Great War, and he said, I would like to play this. We sat down and played, and it gives you, and this is my biggest highlight of this system, is it's fast and in your face. It's play. You can see your ships zipping around, your fighters are flying up, you're playing cards, you're battling back, whole sections, whole battleships, fleets of 3, which are crazy strong, are going down with a lucky roll. If you do not like the luck factor, there's more of it here. My son, in one of the games, so first of all, we played one and he said, can we play again right now? Yes, thank you PSC, thank you Borg. That is a dream come true. He's like, I want to play it again right now. In that game, that very first game, and thank you first game, because the second game I dominated a little bit more, but that's fine. You know how things move in CNC with your card play, learning a system, and the luck of the die or dice. But in the first one, I would nail him. He would nail me. I nailed him, and he literally said, I don't think I got a chance of winning. Then he came back and boom, and then he had a ship do this heroic action where he named the captain of the vessel, Jerry, for some reason. And then Jerry made a suicide run at some of my stronger fleets, and it laid itself out like a story. And it was so successful that he was talking about it after we'd played our back-to-back games. So there you go, the play element, the fun element, it's all over the place on this one, all over. It's not going to give you a lot of, like I said, that simulation, so you got to know where you fall. It's kind of like whiskey. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean it's bad whiskey. Maybe it's just not my palate style. This is going to be a palate style. That's why I keep saying game, bling, wow factor. The cards play the same way. Everything's fast and furious and in your face. Now, here's another plus. We had our second game over in right at an hour. I didn't have to teach him anything. He knew cards. He wasn't having to read the cards anymore. He was like, He was even, what are you doing? Do you got an ambush card in your combat hand there? And I'm like, wow, this is great. So I can't talk up enough on that wow fun factor here, both for me and for Bo, my son. He even was contemplating coming on the show because he wanted to express some of the things that he liked about it. And he changed his mind and said, film it tomorrow when I'm at school. He's 13, almost 14. Richard Borg has talked about expansions. A race called the Crawl, which is like a prequel to what's going on. These are both human fleets, different fleets fighting each other. But the Crawl were like some race that gave some of this technology or something. Then there's another one, the Obsidians. No, it's not it. Some other race that he's talked about that's totally different. Like a different deck of cards maybe, totally. And they do different things and they work differently. And then even a galaxy mat that sits more like a hexagon itself, which I don't know how that works with the CNC system as far as playing cards left, middle, right. So that was cool. And then the option that you could have space marines that are landing on planets, and then there's battles going on down on the planet's surface. But so I would love all this stuff, but of course it's either got to have a huge breakout, which it hasn't really been a huge crossover for folks that are non-war gamers. I thought it would bring in more. That's fine. Or they need to do a Kickstarter, which is what PSC did with the Great War. So I'm hopeful it gets support on Kickstarter because Kickstarter will show the demand. That's my hope. And I think the demand is there. And if they get enough support, maybe they sell a few more of these. And now we get this this asymmetrical, weird faction, this bizarre kind of alien stuff and landing on planets and prequel aliens and whatever's going on in the Borg's mind. That's what I call it. It's the Borg. So, Red Alert, love it. Again, with the caveat, you gotta like the toy factor. You gotta like the fiddliness, and I usually don't. I usually don't like fiddly, but once I got it set up, although some of the pegs kept coming off, I gotta glue them on there. So there's that fiddle factor. But once it was set up, the second game, bam, we were just rocking through this thing. And it looks so good on the table. So good on the table. I know I'm gonna be playing this with my grandson as well. This has moved into probably the CNC game that'll get played the most. My boy just didn't get into World War II, but it is what it is, and he even role-played it a little bit. Jerry, hello Jerry. All right, see you guys later. If you haven't played it, check it out. If you don't know the CNC system, this is kind of a light entryway into it, but I know it's a bigger box and a bigger setup, and everything's grand with it. So again, toy factor and game. Toy factor, bling, and game fun time thing. Honor Harrington. See you guys. Not me, the hat.